Hey, it's Alan. Welcome back. Okay, as mentioned, we're going to use Google Firebase for some aspects of this website we're building. We're going to use the database to store the information about our links. And again, I have these in a spreadsheet right now. It could be a database table, whatever. But it's just kind of easier to manage in this one. I don't want to manually go through and mark up each of these as with HTML tags. I like to just store the information in a database and then display it in a format that's attractive to the eye. And the database side of Firebase is going to give us that part of it, the storage side of it. And then we're also going to use Firebase hosting, which basically lets anyone in the world browse to and view the website. And again, both are free, so this isn't going to cost you any money to do that. All right, let's get started. I'll assume you already set up your Google account, so you want to browse out to firebase.google.com. Over on the right, if you see sign in, go ahead and click that and sign into your Google account. I'm already signed in, so I see my picture instead. Then click Go to Console. And when I get there, I see a project named Collections, which is basically a rough draft, the one we're going to be creating here, but we'll recreate it from scratch. All right, so you want to click Add Project, give it a name, and I'll call this one Collects. Google makes up a project ID for it, which is just your name followed by some numbers. Click Create Project, and this will become your Firebase project. And within the project, you can use different features of Firebase. And as I mentioned, we're going to be using the database, and we're also going to be using the hosting. I'm not going to try to explain everything in there. This course would take forever. So to create the database, go back to the database card there and click Get Started under Database. And then you want to choose Get Started under Real-Time Database. And it basically creates an empty database for you. Now, the default security rules require users to be authenticated. That's the default setting. It's not exactly what I want in this particular app. I want users, the public, to be able to come in and look around all they want, okay, so they can see anything I put out there. That I don't mind. However, I'm not going to let them add their own links or other content, so I'm not going to give them write permissions. So to define the rules I want to instill, I'll click Rules up here, and I get this little display of two types of rules. Read, meaning people can look at it but not change it, and write, meaning people can look at it and change it. That AUTH is short for authenticated, or you can think of it as authorized. But that followed by does not equal null means that in order to write, the authentication can't be null. That is, the authentication can't be nothing. So if I leave that for write, then that means only people who are authenticated can change the data. And I want that to be me, and I'm the only person who knows the username and password in order to get the authenticated. So for write, I'll leave that as auth does not equal no. But read, the public can read it all they want. They can look at it and see it. So to prevent them from having to log in, I'll change the read permission to true, meaning true, anybody can read this. They don't have to be authorized or authenticated. Okay? So that means the public can read, look at the data, but only I can write, change the data. Now, not all websites are that way, obviously, but this particular example will be that way. All right, so after I make that change, I click Publish. All right, so that just saves the change. It doesn't take you anywhere, but that is the settings now. So then go back to Data, and now I can start putting in my data. I could type it in, but since I already have a spreadsheet, I want to just upload it in there so that, it's up there where the website can access the data and show it to people, but I still have my spreadsheet on my computer that I can use to manage the data. Now, the data I intend to use is in a spreadsheet, as I mentioned earlier. So it's in a tabular format with rows and columns. Across the top of each column, I have given each column a unique name in a database. We might call that a field name. I intentionally didn't put in any spaces or anything because our code is going to be using this name. So it's really more for computers than it is for people. And another thing I can benefit from is what we call a primary key. And that's where each row, sometimes called a record, across has some unique identifier. And I'll use a simple number like number 1 for the first one, 2 for the second one, and so forth. You can see numbers down the left side of Excel like that already, but those aren't part of my data. Those are just part of the spreadsheet. If I want to make them part of the data, then I'll have to add a column and put in the numbers. And an easy way to add a column in Excel is go to the column to the right of where you want to make a new column. In this case, the first column, I'll right-click and choose Insert, and now I have a new empty column to the left. I'll name this column Key because it's going to be my key, the thing that uniquely identifies each row. And now I want to number these, but I don't want to do it manually because there's a whole bunch of them. So since I'm in Excel, I can just use a formula equal row. And that just puts a number into that row to the left. Now, truthfully, the very first row here is field names. The actual data doesn't start till the next row down. And so technically, this should be row 1 of data. And it's fine to leave it like this. The numbers don't have meaning per se. They just have to be unique to each row. But it's simple enough to renumber them to make this one 1. So where I have equal row here, I'll put equal row minus 1. And that will just give it a row number that's 1 less than the actual row number. So now the first data row is a 1. And then I'll copy the formula down by dragging that little green square in the lower right corner. And remember, some of these have author names, some don't. I think we'll just drag it all the way down till they're all filled. And now, all right, so now each row has a unique number. Now, before I can move them to Firebase, I'm going to have to put these in JSON format. So I'll click File and choose Export. And I'll start by sending it to a CSV file, comma separated values. That's kind of a generic thing that's easy to convert to other formats. It doesn't matter what you call the file. It'll just be, I'll call collection items CSV. All right, now that's what I'm going to convert to JSON and then upload. So let me get out of Excel here. There's that CSV file. All right. And now when I open it up, you can see that it kind of looks the same, but instead of neat little columns, it's just text separated by commas. And that's why we call it comma separated values. This is the file I'm going to convert to JSON. But it doesn't need to be open. I just opened it up in Notepad++ so you could see it. That's not a required step, so I'll close that now. Now I got to go out to the web and find something that'll convert this CSV to a keyed JSON JSON file. I'll just Google convert CSV to JSON, no A, and there's a bunch of them, but I think I usually use this one on the top here, so I'll just go to that site. All right, I'm not going to look at all the options. I've done this before, so I know how to do it. You can see there are different explanations, but all I have to do is come down to select input and click choose file, and that CSV file is the one I'm converting. I'll grab that, and it shows you what that CSV file looks like once it's imported here, and that's fine. Again, there's my key on the left and the other fields are there. Now this is almost okay. In fact, I think most of these other options, the first row is column names. You want to choose that. And let's see, I think the rest of the stuff is going to be fine. Yes, this is all. Since it's coming from a Excel CSV file, none of this stuff has to be changed at all. It's all fine. All right, if keyed JSON, the first column is 1, so that's correct. All right, now Firebase is going to want this to be keyed JSON, so I'm going to come down here and under choose conversion type, I'll choose that second option, CSV to keyed JSON. All right, and so now, each key kind of, each row has the key number to the left and then the data. And I'll call this collection items. Download result. And that brings the file down. And it has a JSON extension. I'll open it up. There it is in my downloads folder. I will stick it on the desktop just so it's easier to find later. All right, and then I can close the website. Now there's my JSON file. Now, I'm not exactly done yet because I may want to have multiple tables or multiple nodes of data. It's not a requirement, but just in case I change my mind later, what I want to do is I'm going to make this JSON file into a node where it has one name I can refer to it by. If we're talking about a SQL type database, I'd essentially be defining a table, but we call it a node in JSON. All right, so I have to open this in a text editor or something. I could use VS Code, Visual Studio Code. I happen to have Notepad++ on this machine. I can use that instead. Doesn't matter as long as it's a text editor. And here's what it looks like. So this used to be a spreadsheet, then I converted it to a CSV, and now it's a keyed JSON format in this file. All right, to make this into a node, I have to come up to the top, and after the very first curly brace, I'm going to have to put in a name, the node name, in quotation marks. I'm just going to call it items, I guess. And then I need a colon after that and an opening curly brace. When I type it, I automatically get 2 because Notepad's putting in the second one automatically, but that one really doesn't go right there, so I'll remove it and put it way down at the very bottom so that all of these items you see here are contained within that items node, which is defined by those parentheses. Okay, so there's the closing one for the node, and I'll save that. Now, JSON is a very popular, well-known topic. If you want to learn more about it, just Google JSON, JSON. It's short for JavaScript Object Notation. In this course, I'm just using it as an example, though I don't want to talk about JSON at length. So basically, this is ready to go. We can now go ahead and send it up to Firebase as a JSON database. But while I'm here, let's just take a quick look at it in VS Code, since that's the editor I'll be using a lot. You don't have to do this step if you've already done the rest of Notepad++. I just want to show you what it looks like. I mean, it looks exactly the same. You can see the opening curly brace, the object name items, and so forth. And as you scroll down, you see all the various items. Each one starts with a number, which is the key, and each is enclosed in curly braces. And at the end, we close off the last one, the object name, and the whole file. Okay? So now, to send it up to Firebase, again, we have to start with the close. So I'll go ahead and close this now. And let's go fire up our browser so we can send this to Firebase. Okay, so we got our JSON file all ready to go. Now we need to open up your web browser again and go back out to firebase.google.com. Make sure you're signed into your account. If you don't see your picture over here, go ahead and click sign in. Then go to console. Click the collection name, which is collects for my example. And then you want to scroll down and click Getting Started under Database. And you already have created an empty database, so that will take you there. Click Data if you're not in that tab automatically. And then you see these 3 dots over here. You want to click that. And then choose Import JSON, because you're going to import that JSON data that's currently on your desktop into your Firebase database. It's important to understand that when you import, you don't add to existing data, you replace the data you already have out there. So I don't care here because right now I don't have any, but in the future, if I wanted to make a change, I wouldn't just change a few things and try to put them up there. I'd make the changes in my spreadsheet and then upload the whole spreadsheet again, so the one in Firebase is identical to the one on my desktop. Okay, so to do the import, I'll click Browse, go out and find that file on my desktop, that JSON file. I'll click import, and that should import the whole thing, and it sure didn't take long. And now when I expand these nodes, I can see the data from my spreadsheet, which then went to the CSV, which then went to the JSON, is now in my Firebase database, and I can access these data from my website and display them all formatted nice and neat with HTML and CSS. And we'll get started on that in the next lesson. For now, you can go ahead and close up the web browser. You don't need to be in Firebase anymore for a while. Then come on over to the next lesson and we'll get right back into it. All right, see you there.